we go. Section 3.2c, we're going to do factoring now. And you're wondering, why aren't we doing any of this on Math Excel? Well, this chapter and Math Excel are absolutely horrible. And so that's why we need to do it on paper so we can write out the work and get work written out instead of just guessing what the answer is on Math Excel. So we're going to do this by writing these out, and you might think, well, I know how to do this, and Mr. Bierschbach isn't collecting the work, so I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to look at the answers when Mr. Bierschbach sends out the answers. Well, if you have that attitude, things might not go so well for the quiz that we're having over all this. So I would definitely try to practice this without me giving you the answers first. And then if you're stuck, you can look at the answers and go, oh, that's how it was supposed to be done. But make sure you're working on this and not just going, I'll just review when the Bierschbach puts a quiz review out. It'll be fine. It might not be fine because this gets kind of in-depth as we keep going here. So make sure you're working away on this as we go. Okay, factoring. Let's take an example of factoring, like cosine squared of x minus cosine of x minus 6. Okay, we need to factor this. And you go, how do I do that? Well, let's just replace cosine squared of x with an x. So it's x squared minus x minus 6. Hey, you've seen this before. You know how to factor this. This is x and x. The minus here says the signs are opposite. The factors of 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. Well, it must be 2 and 3. If we put the 2 here and the 3 here, they add up to be -1 and multiply to be a -6. And that's how it factors. So then, when you're doing cosines and sines and tangents and cotangents and secants and cosecants, it's the same type of way. Cosine of x, cosine of x. Signs are opposite, plus, minus. Factors of 6, 2, and 3. Multiply to be -6, add up to be -1. And there it is. Okay? Oh, wow. I didn't notice, but that was problem number 24. Amazing. All right. Let's do another one. Let's say we have something like secant squared of x minus 5 secant of x plus 6. Okay. Well, we know secant squared has to be secant and secant. Secant x, secant x. The signs are the same. If this sign is a plus in front of the 6, signs are the same. They're both negative. Factors of 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. They have to add up to a -5. So a -2 and a -3 add up to 5. Okay. All right. The next one. If we have something like 2 sine squared of x minus 7 sine of x plus 3. When you have a first term coefficient, okay, that's like 2x squared minus 7x plus 3. How do we factor this? Well, back in Algebra 2, Miss Wheeldryer said, multiply these two. So you get 6x squared. And what are the factors of 6x squared? Well, they're 1x and 6x, or 2x and 3x. Which ones add up to negative? Well, if they're both negative, these two do. Okay? So then you wrote it as 2x minus 1 and 2x minus 6. And then the greatest common factor of this is 1. The greatest common factor of this is 2. So then this is 2x minus 1. And then this is x minus 3. So if you FOIL this, you get 2x squared minus 6x minus 1x, which is minus 7x plus 3. Okay? So you do the same for this. So multiply 2 and 3 to get 6. Factors of 6 are 1 and 6 and 2 and 3. If they're both signs the same, they're both negative, it has to be this one. So you go 2 sine of x minus 1 and 2 sine of x minus 6. Factor out the greatest common factor of each. And it's 2 sine of x minus 1 times sine of x minus 3. Okay, let's try that for a different question. Okay, let's say that we have come on here. Let's say we have 4 cosine squared of x minus cosine of x minus 3. Okay? 4 times 3 is, 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. So 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. And then the factors, the only one that makes negative 1 cosine of x would be a negative 4 and 3. So we go 4x plus 3. No, we don't. We do 4 cosine of x plus 3 and 4 cosine of x minus 4. Greatest common factor of this is 1. Greatest common factor of this is 4, so we divide them both by 4. So we get 4 cosine of x plus 3 and cosine of x minus 1. So it's 4 cosine squared. Outers is minus 4 cosine of x. Inners is plus 3 cosine of x, which makes a negative cosine of x minus 3. Okay? So that's the wheel dryer method of factoring. All right. More factoring. Difference of squares. Let's say we have secant squared of x minus cotangent squared of x. Well, how's that factor? Well, it's secant of x plus and minus cotangent of x, cotangent of x. Bada bing, bada boom, we're done. That's called difference of squares factoring. You can do differences of squares without a problem. But if we have cotangent to the fourth of x minus cosine to the fourth of x. Well, it's cotangent squared of x and cotangent squared of x plus and minus cosine squared of x, cosine squared of x. Okay? Now, this is sum of squares right here. It doesn't factor anymore. This right here is difference of squares. It still factors. So we write down cotangent squared of x, not cosine, Mr. Bierschbach, cotangent, plus cosine squared of x. We write this down, and then this one we factor. Cotangent of x, plus, minus, cosine of x, cosine of x. That's the final answer. So if it's to the fourth, be careful. You might have to do one extra step. All right. Continuing on. If we have greatest common factors, such as if we have secant squared of x cotangent of x plus secant of x cotangent of x minus 2 cotangent of x. Okay, in here, I see I have a cotangent here, a cotangent here, a cotangent here. I can factor out a cotangent of x. And I'm left with secant squared of x plus secant of x minus 2. Okay, so once I get that bar, leave the cotangent of x on the outside, 2 sets of parentheses, secant of x, secant of x. Okay, signs are opposite, the bigger one's positive, so opposite signs, the bigger one, the bigger factor of 2 is positive, the smaller factor of 2 is negative. Factored form. Okay, take out the greatest common factor first. All right, so next one. If we have 9 cotangent squared of x minus 6 cotangent of x plus 1. You can do the wheels method, but since this has a square root and this has a square root, 3 cotangent of x, 3 cotangent of x. Signs are the same, they're both minus, 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 1 and 1. And since they're the same, it's 3 cotangent of x minus 1 quantity squared. Okay? All right. Factoring by grouping. If we have cotangent of x sine of x plus cotangent of x plus sine of x plus 1. If there's 4 terms, we do factoring by grouping. Group the first 2, group the last 2. Greatest common factor of the first 2 is cotangent of x, and we get sine of x plus 1. Greatest common factor of the last 2 is 1, so we go plus 1, sine of x plus 1. So this and this and this go in its own set of parentheses, cotangent of x plus 1. Whatever matches goes in its set of parentheses, sine of x plus 1. Okay, let's do that again. Okay, let's say we have 3 sine squared of x plus the sine of x minus 3 sine of x secant of x minus secant of x. Okay, we're going to group these since there's 4 terms. But before we group them, I always want this sign in between the second term and third term to be plus. So I go plus a negative right here. Then I put in my parentheses. Don't distribute your negative sign. Just do it to one thing here before you put in your parentheses. Now, what's greatest common factor? Whoa! What's greatest common factor of these two? Well, it's sine of x. So then it's 3 sine of x plus 1. Greatest common factor of these two is negative 1. Oop, not just negative 1, negative 1 secant of x. And you get 3 sine of x plus 1. Because if you factor out a negative secant, then you get a positive 1. These match now, so you're good. So it's sine of x minus secant of x times 3 sine of x plus 1. Okay? Factoring by grouping. So hopefully that gives you enough information to do problems 23 through 36, all of them. You need practice. Page 172. Okay? So practice, practice, practice on this. Okay, so that's it for this week. Have a nice weekend, and we'll see you virtually next week. Be back out.